it's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 10 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to talk about whether they are going to give this comic moment to Gamma. Now, this is something that's most likely going to be coming up in Season 11 of The Walking Dead, but there is a chance that it could come as early as the back half of Season 10. But with that said, I do think that they're probably going to do it in Season 11. I think Season 10 is just a little too early, but it is a good idea to start the conversation a little bit earlier. But before we start, I do want to put out a comic spoiler warning for those of you that don't follow the comics, because the stuff that we will cover in this video will definitely spoil a lot of the comic material for you. And by a lot, I mean a lot. If you have not read the comics all the way to the end, you may not want to watch this video because it will spoil some major stuff for you. So with that spoiler warning out of the way, assuming everyone here now wants to know or already knows about the comic, we are going to talk about whether they will give Dwight's comic death to Gamma. But before we start, I want to explain what I think was the importance of Dwight's death and how it moved the story towards that final arc with Rick getting shot and killed, and then the time jump that picked up with Carl. So let's start with Dwight. Of course, when Dwight came to the Commonwealth and saw how they operate and saw firsthand the type of leader Pamela was, he was immediately reminded of Negan's reign and what they had to do, what he personally had to sacrifice to get rid of Negan and the Saviors. He knows way too well what this type of leader is capable of. Someone who can manipulate people and control them to a point that they see him or her as a god. And for Dwight, he knows he could have ended it with Negan a lot earlier, with him saving so many innocent lives. But he was weak in a way, and he was not ready to take that on. So now, when he's faced with Pamela and Commonwealth, he knows that it's the same, and he doesn't want to repeat his mistake. This time, his mistake, or him turning an eye on a situation like this, would lead to so many more lives lost. Because if you thought the Saviors had numbers on them, then you haven't seen anything yet. Because Commonwealth pretty much has an army. So Dwight makes a decision to end it before it starts. Dwight threatens to kill Pamela, which leads Rick to have to make a very important decision on his own, which is to kill Dwight, to control the situation. Now, some people at the Commonwealth take Rick's action as a sign of a man who's on a mission to take over. For example, Sebastian, Pamela's son, thinks that Rick did that to get the community to trust him so he could slowly eliminate the key players and take over Commonwealth. This led to him making a decision on his own to assassinate Rick Grimes. Of course, this leads to Rick's death and then the time jump, which takes us to the final issue of the comics with Carl at the forefront of that story. So the key takeaway here is that Dwight is not in the show, at least not where he's supposed to be. Like, he's in the franchise, he's on Fear the Walking Dead, but he's not where he belongs. He's not where his story needs him to be in. So they will need to give that to someone else. Now, that whole story will only work if that character is an ex-enemy. The reason for that is that character needs to be reminded of someone by seeing Pamela. In Dwight's case, in the comics, it was Negan. This is important because it's the thing that triggers the action that gets that character killed. So in the show, when we get to this point, it would need to be given to an ex-enemy. We don't have a lot of those. The people that could take that are ex-saviors, Lara and Alden. Now, in order for that to work, they will need to flesh out and build up these characters to make it feel organic. It'll be easier to do with Alden since he's been developed more than Lara, but still, they would need to build him up more to take that arc. I could also see Negan getting that himself. I can definitely see Negan, much like Dwight, opposing Commonwealth because of the same reasons I mentioned earlier, which would lead Daryl to execute him. And his execution of Negan would actually, in a way, work the same way as it did in the comics. It would, to an extent, gain Pamela and the Commonwealth's trust. And it would lead Sebastian to get the idea that Rick is there to take over, or whoever Rick's replacement is gonna be is there to take over. But what if that's not an ex-Xavier that gets that? What if it's an ex-Whisperer? What if it's Gamma? Assuming she'll make it past the Whisper War. Everything we've said about Dwight and Negan and the Saviors applies for Gamma and Alpha and Beta and the Whispers. I think it would be a cool remix to have Gamma be triggered by Pamela and be reminded of Alpha and Beta and want to put an end to it all before it starts, and then be shot to death by someone like Aaron, for example. That would be super cool, and there's already setup for it. They've had Gamma and Aaron have a lot of interesting scenes and stories together, so it could work. And it would be interesting since TV Aaron now looks a lot like comic Rick. So if he got that, it would be the next best thing, because Rick is not here. So it's like, in a way, Rick is getting that moment after all. You know what I mean? It is going to be a little underwhelming for Aaron to get that. I'll give that to you, but it could work. But with that, let me know your thoughts and opinions about this whole thing in the comment section below. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads.